Hello and welcome to Hispanic Agenda, Washington's only bilingual news program. I'm Alejandro Negron. Thank you for watching. On today's agenda, Hispanic liaison for Montgomery County Police, Blanca Kling, will join me to discuss the county's plan to introduce body cameras for its police officers. But first, I want to welcome this week's roundtable panelists, the editor-in-chief of El Tiempo Latino, Alberto Avendaño, Telemundo Washington's Claudia Curiel, and attorney Mo Vela, former advisor to Vice President Biden. First item on the agenda, racial tensions in Baltimore. Well, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. I want to start with some history and start talking about what are the root causes for what we are watching every night on our TVs happening in Baltimore and other cities. Alberto Avendaño, I'll start with you.
Well, you know, as a Washington Post editorial stated, rioting is a senseless expression of anger and despair. Once this is said, we have to remember Martin Luther King when he stated that a riot is the language of the unheard. So we are here in front of an issue that obviously, as you said, has roots well inside communities that are unheard, communities that feel the despair, and then it materializes in anger.
But at the same time, when you see so many people commenting this on social media, including many Latinos sharing this in English and in Spanish, they tend to think that these are just criminals that are misbehaving, and that people that express concerns as the ones you just mentioned are just finding excuses for people that just wanted to behave bad. Mo Vela,
you know, Alejandro, this is water that's been boiling over time. Okay, we have a systemic, fundamental problem in this nation in certain parts of communities across America, right? Sometimes they're African American communities, sometimes they're Latino communities,
sure,
and sometimes they're Asian American and other ethnic groups, right? But they're the disenfranchised. They tend to be impoverished, right? And there's an economic injustice. And so what's been happening is the water slowly been warming up. Freddie Gray, God bless him, may he rest in peace, right? These riots weren't just about Freddie Gray, in my opinion. These riots are a result of a lot of frustration.
Freddie Gray is a spark.
I think that's right, like a tipping point.
This goes way beyond Freddie Gray. I mean, this is frustration that has existed for many generations.
Yes.
I mean, one in every 3 people in Baltimore live in poverty.
That's right.
This is about other things. It's about unemployment, it's about poverty, and this is much more deeply rooted.
Yeah. We're talking about an unemployment rate that's extremely high. We're also talking about the war on drugs when we talk about this issue in Baltimore and how that community has been affected by it.
And also warnings.
For those who criticize the war on drugs.
All these red flags that have been raised, the recent Baltimore Sun report that is absolutely incredible. Incredible in a threatening and a scary way. You read that, the way the police is behaving in the city, and you say, why nobody is doing anything about
and the
this?
millions of dollars, Mo, that have been paid out to victims of police brutality from that department, from that city.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lack of trust, right, between not just in Baltimore. I think this is such a wider systemic problem.
And not only with African Americans, as
right.
Claudia, you were saying off camera. Also, Latinos feel discriminated. You talked to someone when you were there last Friday.
This is a big struggle, not just with the African American community. The Hispanic community has no trust in the authorities. I was in Baltimore, I spoke to them, and I mean, I heard a story which is one of many, and it's this Hispanic man that his license was taken away unfairly by a police officer. This officer later looked up his address, showed up at his house, and beat him at his house.
Amazing.
This man was later deported soon after. So incidents like this make it evident as to why there's no trust between the authorities.
And the population. We have to remember something. Latinos are 40% of the immigrant population of the city. And this gap, this breach of credibility, of trust, is there. I want to emphasize something also that is there at the same time that we see all this dark side of the situation. I see a lot of lights too. I have seen people helping out to clean up.
I'm telling you, look, I was there on Tuesday Tuesday all day for Telemundo, and what I saw was a community united, rallying up. They were singing. It was more of a celebration of freedom and freedom of speech, and the majority were acting correctly. We should also state that. Now, talking to an African American woman there, which, by the way, was able to grant me an interview in Spanish.
Amazing.
I thought that
language, believe me.
That was amazing to me, and I really liked. She basically explained to me that the feeling there in that neighborhood in the west part of Baltimore, Penn Station, I guess, North and Penn, is that they don't matter. They're not important. And when anybody feels like they're not important, they don't matter, they're going to act a certain way, no?
Can I just, before we leave the other topic, I think it's very, very important for your viewers, for all of us, to also remember that as we point out the systemic injustices that are probably the root cause of these riots and other police brutality incidences and things we're seeing across the country, that the vast majority of our law enforcement officials are good, law-abiding, loving, God-fearing people who, because of them, we are safe.
And let me ask you really quick.
I want to make sure that we also honor those who don't engage in these practices, right?
In less than 20 seconds, how would you grade the response of the governor and the mayor?
In less than 20 seconds, it's impossible, so I prefer to pass.
Okay, you will pass?
I would say the mayor was reacting, I think she was trying to learn from Ferguson. To ask her police force not to be confrontational because we saw the results of that.
But you have the classes on a Monday.
It would have been nice to see the governor before, you know.
But the school
I think her presence would have been important as well. I mean, elected officials were out there protesting with other people, and she and the governor weren't present.
All right, good. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to tackle another very important issue when we come back. Next item on the agenda, does the Constitution guarantee same-sex couples the right to marry? The Supreme Court heard arguments for and against on Tuesday. That's the next item on the agenda. We'll discuss it with the roundtable. Stay tuned to News Channel 8. Welcome back to Hispanic Agenda. I'm Alejandro Negron. Next item on the agenda, same-sex marriage. The Supreme Court is expected to rule in June on the issue after hearing arguments for and against last Tuesday. Let me welcome back the editor-in-chief of El Tiempo Latino, Alberto Avendaño, Telemundo Washington's Claudia Curiel, and attorney Mo Vela, former advisor to Vice President Biden. I want to start with you, Mo, because you're an attorney and you also happen to be a gay American. As an attorney first, what were you able to glean from the arguments that you heard on Tuesday and the questions asked by the justices that could help us predict how they're going to come down on the issue in June?
I think the first mistake anybody could make is to try to ever guess what the Supreme Court's going to decide by evaluating their questioning. If you'll notice, some of our more traditionally conservative justices were asking questions that were indicative at times that they were going to be supportive of gay marriage, right? And then you had some that were more moderate who were sounding like they were going to come out against gay marriage, right? So I don't think it's fair or safe to predict.
Okay.
But what I will say is, fundamentally, I don't understand how anybody cannot view this as a simple equal protection argument. If one person can get married and another one cannot, there's an inequality there. I mean, it's that simple in my eyes. Whether I was gay, straight, bisexual, transgendered, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's about equality.
It really is about equality in my eyes. And maybe, again, I'm a little biased just because I'm a gay American.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but what are the arguments against, what were the arguments that were heard against gay marriage? Alberto.
I have heard history, I have heard tradition, I even have heard biology. Yeah. Obviously, constitutional interpretation, the democratic process, and how the courts are prodding social change. We have heard all these things. At the end of the day, I have not heard something that is key, which is the fulfillment of a human dignity. And there is something that is very interesting that I just read, and it's Justice Scalia, a very conservative conservative judge. He said something like, the issue is not whether there should be same-sex marriage, but who should decide the point. The right answer, he said, was the people or their elected representatives, not the courts.
That sounds like he doesn't want the Supreme Court involved, maybe because he knows he's gonna...
This is an opening here, and this is what this says, is that same-sex marriage is, in the U.S., is not about an if anymore. It is about a when.
Claudia, let me get you in here. You were there on Tuesday.
I was there on Tuesday when the arguments were going on, and I also had the opportunity to interview Senator Tim Kaine on the subject. And he had an interesting
Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia.
Point of view. Yes, he was explaining how in his state of Virginia 30, 40 years ago, it was illegal to marry someone of a different race.
That's right.
The Supreme Court later changed this, and so for him, you know, he thinks that this is simply the next step in the path to equality.
Which is a case that's actually being used as in the arguments for marriage equality.
That's right.
Okay, great.
And Justice Ginsburg, let's point out, raised a very fascinating point during oral arguments on Tuesday when she said, if you're going to rely on this argument of tradition, then you're in trouble, because at one point a husband was superior to an inferior wife or a subordinate wife.
Right.
So you have to be careful about arguing about tradition. And I think it's naive for us not to also point out that one of the greatest arguments against equality and gay marriage is based on religion.
Now,
so
let me ask you, we only have 20 seconds left. I want to ask you about this group of last Saturday, or last weekend, I want to say. A large group of a lot of Latinos came down from New York supporting or rallying against gay marriage. This is this group led by Senator Ruben Diaz, a Democrat from New York.
Yeah, it's what you were saying before. It's not only about the courts, it's also about the religious issue. When you put together this, it can become disturbing when you introduce faith. What do you think about that? Because I want to hear it from you.
Well, we have to go, actually. We're running out of time, but thank you so much.
We'll talk about that.
But we definitely will talk about that in the future. This is, and Mo and all of you, thank you for being here, and we'll have Mo back anytime he wants. Thank you so much, sir. On the other side of the break, are you street smart? A special report by Jeanette Reyes that you don't want to miss, coming up on Hispanic Agenda. Welcome back to Hispanic Agenda. I'm Alejandro Negron. With a lot more people walking and biking, Montgomery County officials are urging drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists to take extra care and watch out for each other as they travel around the region. Here's ABC 7 News' Jeanette Reyes with more.
It's something we're all familiar with. The driver in a rush to get somewhere and the pedestrian crossing wherever is more convenient. And it's not always the crosswalk. You can press a button and wait to cross along the crosswalk, but they don't go there. They cross elsewhere, and sometimes you're driving and you don't see them. According to the Montgomery County Police Department, in 2013, there were 13 fatal pedestrian accidents. In 2014, an improvement with 9 reported. But this year, it's only April, and there have already been 5 deaths. 2 of the victims were Hispanic.
In our countries, we're not too disciplined, and also the drivers are not disciplined. So when we come here, we encounter that, wait a minute, there are signs, and I have to make sure that I have to walk correctly.
MCPD spokesperson Blanca Kling says efforts are already being made to educate both pedestrians and drivers. The county will hold 40 events a month enforcing the law. You may have already seen officers at different intersections around the county keeping an eye out for jaywalkers and distracted drivers.
If a pedestrian is not crossing in the crosswalk, they will get a ticket for $40. The point that we wanted to make across is that once you cross and you're not paying attention, then your life could be in danger.
Residents here are hoping for the best. I hope everyone pays more attention so that there won't be so many accidents. But say history has proven that sometimes habits are hard to break, however dangerous they may be. With all of the commercials they have on this, people keep doing the same thing. They don't respect the law. Reporting for Hispanic Agenda, I'm Jeanette Reyes.
And thank you, Jeanette. And now I want to welcome the Hispanic liaison for Montgomery County Police, Blanca Kling, will join us now. Thank you for being here. We just saw you there in that report by Jeanette Reyes. It's a pleasure to have you on, finally.
Thank you. Yes.
Let me ask you about pedestrians and cyclists in Montgomery County. About how many get injured or die every year?
Well, just for instance, according to our statistics, in 2014 we had 9 pedestrian fatalities, and in 2015 now, it's not even the end of April, we had 5 pedestrian fatalities, so 1 is too many.
And as we saw in the report, many people complain about this, specifically in the Hispanic community, but many of the fatalities reported in Montgomery County are, in fact, Hispanic folks.
Out of the 5 pedestrian fatalities we had this year, 2 of them were Hispanics.
2 out of 5
Yes.
were Hispanic.
Yes.
See, that's
1 is too many.
Yeah, 1 is too many, absolutely.
Yes.
So what are you guys doing about it? What are the basic elements of the operation?
Well,
I know you're ticketing people, but what else are you doing?
What we are doing this year, under the leadership of Captain Daidon, we are having 40 pedestrian enforcement, and that will be, you know, the month has 30 days, so we're going to have 2 or maybe 1 enforcement a day. So we need to make sure that people in Montgomery County know that somewhere in Montgomery County there will be officers enforcing pedestrians. And so what will mean that is that we'll have several officers in different areas, and they will make sure that people are crossing the streets from the crosswalk, and also drivers are watching the pedestrians. Sometimes we are distracted, and sometimes the pedestrians are distracted, and that's what happened. You know how happened the accidents.
All right, we're talking to Blanca Kling, the spokesperson for Montgomery County Police. And I want to ask you, when we're first going to go to break, and then when we come back, I want to ask you about body cameras for police officers, which you guys will be implementing in Montgomery County soon. And I also want to ask you about some other efforts in Montgomery County by Montgomery County Police when we come back. This is Blanca Kling, the Hispanic liaison for Montgomery County Police, joining us here on Hispanic Agenda. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hispanic Agenda. I'm Alejandro Negron. We're talking with Blanca Kling, Hispanic liaison for Montgomery County Police. Thank you for joining us once again.
It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm really happy that we get to talk again. We've talked for many years on the radio. I'm glad to have you on TV. Let me ask you about this plan to implement body cameras, or to equip police officers in Montgomery County with body cameras. This will be implemented when?
Well, we are going to have a pilot program, and this will happen in June or July. So the officers are still working on the details.
This is a pilot program.
It's a pilot program.
So this will not be an implementation countywide?
Well, it's a pilot program because we also have to work with the legislation in Annapolis to see how it's going to be guided. And
which apparently the governor, Larry Hogan, said that he will be for approving that.
Yes.
Okay.
So we hope that everything works well.
To see what the legislature does.
And of course, it will be to, you know, hold the officers accountable, and the chief wants to do that. So, and the officers also.
Do we know, since this is a pilot program, do you know, or have you identified specific areas where this program will start?
Like I said, Chief Manager and his commander staff, they're working on it, but I don't have those details at this point.
Okay, so those details we don't have yet. Right. Let's talk a little bit about privacy, because this is obviously a concern that many people have when you're talking about body cameras. Of course, on one side you have the proof of what happened, not someone's story, but the proof. But on the other side, you know, there's issues about privacy. Who will access the files or the images captured by these cameras? How would that work?
Well, that's what is going to be worked out with the department and also the legislation. They have to. That's
the part that they're going to be negotiating.
They have to work on several issues, and then probably at the end of this pilot program, they will have more answers that they will be able to give us to the community.
But even during the pilot phase of this, what would happen with those images? Who would have access to that?
Well, I cannot. I don't have any information.
It's something that we don't know. Okay.
Yes.
Let's change topics really quick. Baltimore, of course, we've been covering what's happening there, the racial tensions there. I know that Montgomery County has been very supportive of their neighbor to the north, and provided officers and equipment. When I was there last Tuesday, I saw your Humvees and other very heavy equipment.
Yeah. Well, we had 45 officers on Tuesday. We have 45 officers on Wednesday. We didn't have anybody yesterday, and they were there to give support and assistance to Baltimore police. And if you've seen the officers who were in the front line, they were officers from Montgomery County Police. They have received training, special training to do crowd control. For instance, also when President Obama was sworn in, they were there, so they go to big events, and they're very well trained, as you saw, so which we're very proud of them.
I mean, obviously that day we saw them, and they kept everyone calm, everybody pretty much cooperating. Well, Blanca Kling, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have you back many times.
Oh, tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much, Blanca Kling. Well, please check out our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Tune into Telemundo Washington for the Spanish version of this program, and be sure to join us again next week here on News Channel 8. Have a great weekend, and thank you for watching Hispanic Agenda. Until next Saturday.